This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
And welcome to the program. We're glad to have you with us on this Easter Sunday. I'm joined now by Congressman French Hill, who represents the 2nd District of Arkansas. Welcome and happy Easter to you.
Happy Easter, happy Passover to you and your audience.
All of that. Thank you so much. Well, let's begin with a really serious subject here on this holiday weekend here. Last week, President Trump drops an incredibly large bomb on Afghanistan. This is on the heels of the bombing in Syria in response to the chemical weapons on the citizens there. What is the president's policy on all of this? We're dropping a lot of bombs, I guess, is my initial response to this, but I don't know where we're going.
Well, we're just hearing the details in Afghanistan. Afghanistan, as I think all our viewers know, is plagued not only with trying to stand up an Afghan army that works and can perform and an Afghan internal security force, but you've got the Taliban and ISIS. And the target for this Moab bomb that was used was an ISIS stronghold over on the eastern border with Pakistan, apparently to disrupt an ISIS burrow of tunnels in that area.
Does the president need to consult with Congress more on this? He likes to be unpredictable. He says this all the time. I don't want to telegraph my military strategy. At the same time, there's a mixed bag of Republicans and Democrats that are willing to give the president latitude or want more accountability from the president before more actions take place. Which camp do you fall in?
Right. Well, I think on the Afghanistan case, I think that is covered by the authorization for military force that was completed by Congress in the Bush administration and used by the Obama administration against ISIS and al-Qaeda. In the question of Syria, I think the issue there is, what was the mission? This was a small proportionate strike against airfields in Syria. I think doing that one action was appropriate and didn't require additional congressional authorization. But I believe the Trump administration would need to come and consult with Congress if they expanded operations, particularly air operations in Syria.
Yeah, I think to some extent my perception is that the Syrian airstrike was really just to send a signal that we're not going to be, this new administration is not going to be afraid to take action.
I think it sent a signal. People have talked about it in Asia as well as in the Middle East. I believe that if President Obama had done that when the red line was originally drawn over chemical use, that we might have headed off 5 million refugees and almost 500,000 deaths in Syria potentially.
Let's flip to another international albatross, really, and that is North Korea. Just a lot of saber rattling from the North Korean government, North Korean leadership. Is that past a diplomatic solution?
I'm not sure, because the linchpin in a diplomatic solution really still is China. And as you know, since the Clinton administration, Bush administration, and Obama administration, 3 presidencies have made a commitment to make sure that North Korea doesn't get a nuclear weapon. And over the past 3 presidencies, they've continued to make progress. I still think that China is instrumental to the diplomacy, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the administration what progress they think they made between President Xi and President Trump's talks. If you read the press and here at the end of the week, maybe there's some encouragement there, but I'd like to see what happens next.
Yeah. All right, let's turn our attention to some domestic issues. Congress is allegedly dealing with tax reform. I'm sure there's a lot of conversations going on in some subcommittee rooms, and quite frankly, just some back rooms and hallways and offices there. Larry Kudlow, one of your favorite economists there, says that he views this whole tax reform process is shaky right now. Stephen Moore, another conservative economist, has said we're all over the map on this. What does tax reform look like to you right now?
Yeah, well, I think Larry Kudlow and Stephen Moore make good points. First of all, one of the basic tenets to try to go and move towards tax reform was getting the Affordable Care Act repealed, restructured, and repaired and replaced as a fundamental part of tax reform. Why? Because part of that effort was to repeal some of the taxes that were embedded in the Affordable Care Act. Secondly, Larry Kudlow has written extensively about his concerns about Paul Ryan's border adjustment tax, which is of concern to retailers, oil refiners, electronics salespeople, because it imposes a large new tax on imports. And I've got concerns about that issue as well. I think the Trump administration should step back and come forward with their own views on tax reform. And I think that would provide some leadership to the House and Senate. We have
So you don't think you're getting that now?
Well, I think I think they don't even have an assistant secretary for tax policy yet. So, and they just have had their Treasury secretary for less than a month. I think they are getting there, and I think that would be helpful to the House and Senate to know precisely where President Trump wants to go on tax reform. We have a clear view in the House of the preference of the Ways and Means Committee, but some of those provisions are not welcome in the Senate. So this is a great opportunity for the president to step up and deliver some leadership and fine-tune the direction of tax reform.
You think it gets done this session?
I think there's going to be a worthy effort at getting it done because there are a lot of people who want to reform our tax system and make it more competitive, and that's good enough reason to try.
You mentioned repeal and replace earlier. There was a short-term worthy effort done on that. Some would argue that there wasn't enough time spent on trying to build the case for the Ryan plan, and some would say that there just wasn't going to be some consensus there with different elements of the Republican caucus as well as over in the Senate. Where do things stand now? Do you see that debate being resurrected? Right before you guys left for recess, there was talk of that, but is that just spin, or is that?
No, I don't think it's spin. Roby, the way I describe that, it's truly a work in progress. I think a majority of Republicans in the House of Representatives believe that we should have a repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act because of all the problems that we're seeing with the act. Spiring deductibles and high premiums, and those are going to get worse.
You were a supporter of the Ryan plan, though.
I thought that the Ryan plan,
to vote for it.
The Ryan plan, I thought was a good first step to go to the Senate and see what kind of combined effort that we could get to repair the deficiencies in the Affordable Care Act and go in a more market-based direction. And I still think the House and Senate should try to do that. They should try to come up with a consensus plan that will leave the American people better off as it relates to access to affordable health care.
Would you do me a favor as a 2nd District constituent? Would you make sure there's enough time for us to see what's in the legislation and to see a Congressional Budget Office score before there's a vote taken? I thought that the time frame on that was just
I think
very
as you look back on it, there was insufficient time for people to go back into districts and talk about the pros and cons and the changes that might be made.
In fairness, y'all have had 7 years, the Republicans have, to talk about
we've talked about all the principles.
Well, sure,
all the principles.
But there's been 7 years to put a plan out there.
Yeah, well, we've voted on the component parts of a plan, putting it together, getting it in legislative language. I do think the American people needed more time to look at the pros and cons of it. I agree.
We got about 30 seconds left here. You got a town hall coming up on Monday. You're doing it with Senator Cotton.
Right.
You've gotten a little criticism for doing it in the afternoon and in doing it with Senator Cotton. So I'll give you a chance to refute that criticism.
Well, Senator Cotton did an event with Congressman Crawford last month, thought it went well, and we tried to find a time during this Easter recess when we could do one together, thinking that would be beneficial to folks in the 2nd Congressional District. So we found a day and a time when we could do it together, and we look forward to inviting everybody on Monday afternoon at the Embassy Suites.
I lied, we got 30 more seconds here. Is it time to rethink town halls? From what you see on TV, and this happened when Democrats held some of these seats too, it's just a bunch of yelling at times.
Well,
so do constituents need that?
I look back over my first 2 years in Congress. I did 400 open press, open public events over that period of time, and I've done 12 or 13 in the last 2 months here in the district. I think smaller groups where you're moving around the counties, as you and I've talked before, is preferential. But a lot of people want to have a big one, and so we're going to have a big one on Monday, and we invite people to come to it.
All right, we'll see how it goes. Congressman French Hill, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Appreciate
Robert. Appreciate you.
All right, when we come back, a deeper discussion of the death penalty in Arkansas. We're right back after this.